and welcome to episode 6 of the ArtCast. I'm your host, Art Shimko, coming to you live from beautiful Austin, Texas for May 4th, 2020. And before we get on with today's show, I just got a couple quick show notes here. Got the podcast now on a few new platforms. We're already on, we're hosted on Podbean, and we were on TuneIn Radio. We're also on iTunes, Google Podcasts, and we're also on Stitcher and iPodder, and also we also host the videos on YouTube and Facebook. So plenty of ways to check out the show. I want to thank you all again for your support and for listening. Got a lot of downloads, a lot of people listening to the podcast, and I really appreciate it. And so today I wanted to discuss something that I attempted to do years ago, and in the second episode, which is a pro wrestling episode, I talked about being a fan and how long I was a fan and how I got into it. So I think it was about a little over 4 years ago, 2016. I decided that I was gonna go to pro wrestling school and train to be a pro wrestler. And I had thought about this at the end of 2015. I saw that there was going to be classes coming up at the CHIKARA Dojo in Northeast Philadelphia, and I'll explain CHIKARA in a minute. But I had missed. Once in a while they were doing. CHIKARA would do a free tryout. Usually, like, be at a show or something, like me, or you can go down to their training center, their dojo, and you could do, sign a waiver, and for like 90 minutes you could like learn a few moves, and if you thought that it was for you, then you can go on and take their 7-week training course. And as I had said, I had just missed their free training session, and I think the next one was going to be in the springtime of 2016. And at the time I thought, well, I want to try this right away. So, I wasn't in the best shape. I was trying to get into shape. I was doing the Diamond Dallas Page yoga, the DDP yoga training program that I had on DVD. I was trying to do that a few times a week and get myself. I was already doing that prior for a while. I was always trying to get myself into some type of shape doing that. But when I decided I was going to go for this pro wrestling training, I thought, well, I'm already somewhat active and somewhat doing exercise. So, but just to get into it real quick, CHIKARA Pro, they're a wrestling promotion based out of Pennsylvania. They run now in Northeast Philly. And they've run shows in Philadelphia in the past, but they're originally based out of Allentown, which is, I think, about like 90 minutes or 2 hours north of Philadelphia. It's a former steel mill town. Billy Joel wrote and sang a song about it in the 80s, and so they, Mike Quackenbush and Reckless Youth, they were independent wrestlers in that part of Pennsylvania. And they decided to start a promotion that they named CHIKARA. And it was mainly influenced by a lot of Mexican lucha libre and some Japanese wrestling, a lot of high flying, but mainly a lot of the technical moves and such were based off of lucha libre. And a lot of the guys who were local that were trained in the school, a lot of them had gimmicks with masks and, kind of wacky names. And the shows that CHIKARA put on were different than other shows. Other promotions were trying to be like ECW or like, just trying to be edgy, and everybody's, cursing in their promos and kind of, edgy or racy storylines and such. And Chikara was going more for the family entertainment side of things. I mean, very excellent wrestling and great characters, just clean promos and storylines that were kind of wacky and funny, but, still pretty cool and such. And a lot of great wrestlers came out of there. Chris Hero, who was Cassius Ohno for a while in NXT. He wrestled there for a long time and trained there. Claudio Castagnoli, who's Cesaro in WWE. He was a regular there. Eric Cannon, just so many great wrestlers there. So they I didn't get to really see them except on DVD because they were mainly doing shows up in that part of Pennsylvania, and then they began running some shows in Philly, so I was able to see them finally in person, and it was exciting to see. And then Chikara based their headquarters up in the Northeast. So I decided to, like I said, to go for the training course. I said it was a beginner's course, so I paid the $249 for a 7-week training course. And Mike Quackenbush was going to be one of the trainers, and the other trainer was Ophidian, who's a very well-known wrestler in Chikara, and he's also wrestled in CZW and I think Ring of Honor and other independents in the area. And so I decided, what the hell, I wanted to try it. I was really curious about wrestling, and at this point I thought, this could be, I was already, I was 43 when I decided to, start training in this, and I thought, maybe there's like still this kind of window of time where I can get in and possibly learn how to do this and, pull it off and such. So, the course started in February 2016, and for me, I wasn't driving at the time, living in the city, so it was a long commute. It was Saturday morning. I think I'm trying to remember what time the class started now. Can't remember if it started did it start at like 10? Or I don't think it started. It was 2 hours. Maybe it started at noon. Maybe I can't remember now. If it was like late morning or whatever. But it was a long commute for me, so I had to take subway. I lived in South Philly at the time, so I took subway to Center City. Took a bus. I took a train. I took the subway from South Philly all the way up to one of the stops going towards Northeast Philly. Then I had to get out and take a bus, and then drop me off at this stop, and then I had to walk like another 10 minutes to I think it was Wingate Street. Was the name of the street that the Chikara Dojo's on. You walk down it, it's like all these warehouses or like auto repair places and stuff, and then you see the Chikara Dojo. It's like a warehouse building, but the metal door that slides up like a garage door, it has like the big logo on it, Chikara logo, and then the entrance door also has like a smaller logo on it. So I get there the first day, and I meet this girl out there. She's really cute. Has like green hair, I think, and I think her name was Calypso. And I'd asked her if this was her first time training, and I think she had trained at the CZW school. And I'd learned to find out that many of these students who were coming in for the first aid training had already trained at other schools. I was completely green, never trained at any school before, so I was like, oh man, I was like, I hope I can keep up with all these other guys and girls because they're all trained at other schools, most if not all of them. And here I was, like, never trained in any kind of wrestling or anything. I hadn't done martial arts since I was, teenager, pre-teenager even. So I was like, oh man, what am I in for? But I really tried to keep positive and be like, well, this is a new experience. I had nothing else really going on. I didn't like my job at the time. My, relationship wasn't that great at the time. And I was just like, I just needed some kind of escape and some kind of new thing to do with my life. So I thought, what the hell? Let me try this. I really respect what these athletes do, and I want to learn and, possibly get involved in wrestling somehow. So the first day, like we're doing our stretches and already getting in the ring and doing forward rolls and stuff, and I was already like trying to get myself into that. I'd kind of like roll off to the side or maybe not fully roll straight, and Mike Quackenbush is like, all right, come on, Art, like get it straight, whatever, like he's like telling me, like, hey, get it more straight or get it more, and I was probably like doing a little better by then and such, but it was already like these kind of like very like these like kind of like moves you would see in a match when like somebody like they're trying to like tag to their partner and they like roll off into the corner and do the hot tag. So that was that kind of like move and such, or rolling out of the way. It's like a move you'd see plenty of times in a match. It's like in a way like a basic move, and it's just just like right out the gate, like learning that. I was just like, I was like, this is a beginner's class. I wonder how this is going to start. And I was like, whoa, okay, this is the beginner's class, and it's starting like this already. So, yeah, it was a real eye opener, man. Like it was, it was, it was really something. I'm trying to, I remember trying to remember, like, I did it for, I'll explain why later, but I was there for like 3 weeks, it's out of the 7, and I'm trying to remember, like, it's been some time, so I was trying to remember, like, when we started learning moves. It might have been like, but definitely by like the 3rd week, it was like learning moves, like more like lock up and like collar elbow tie up and all that kind of thing, and wrist lock and such, and headlock. I think I feel like the first week was like a lot of those kind of like rolling moves. I remember, if it's that same class, I remember like we had to do like a flip or something, or like we had to I don't know, get on our hand, like bend down forward and get on our hands and like flip like backward and like land on our feet or something. And I remember doing that, and I didn't have enough strength when I was like because I remember trying to like get on, I kept trying to do the flip over. I couldn't do it over there, and you have to do it. You can't be like, oh, I fucked up, and then you just move on. You have to, like, it's a drill. Like, the whole class gets up on the ring apron, and you have to wipe your feet on the ring apron before you get in the ring. So, you're going around the ring apron, and then you get to like one of the ring posts, and then you get in crossing through the ropes into the ring, and then in a diagonal, to the other side of to the other ring post at the end. That's where you end your exercise. So I remember going to do this flip, and I could not like flip myself over, and they're like, come on, you could do it, come on, do it. And I remember stopping, and like, I didn't have the strength enough to like hold myself up. Like, I did it so slow, and I fell on the top of my fucking head, man. And I was, and then I think I finally like kind of like did it, and got through it, and I think either Mike Quackenbush or Ophidian was like, it might have been Mike. He was like, all right, come on. He's like, got to do better next time, whatever. But oh man, I remember like landing on top of my head, and I was like, oh my God, that hurt. My fucking neck hurt. Top of my head hurt, man. Like, oh my, I was just like, dude. And I can't remember if it was the first class or the second class. Might have been the first class, because I think they might have started this already, but I had to do, I remember doing the back bump. And for anyone who hasn't watched wrestling, the back bump is you basically, like, you kind of crouch. You're kind of like in a crouching position. You're standing upward, and then like you kind of like bend at the knees. You kind of, you kind of like crouch a bit, whatever. And you push off your feet. You push backward off your feet, and you put your arms out. You stretch your arms out, on each side, horizontally, and then you land, and you have to land flat back on the ring, on the mat, and like they'll have you do it like a few times, like if you fuck it up. But like basically the drill was like, you go in, and then you boom, and then you just get back up and you go out the ring, and the next person does it. And one thing I forgotten to do, and I can't remember if they'd mentioned it or I remember I maybe seen it, but I forgot to tuck my chin when I did it. And you have to like tuck your chin into your chest right before you do it, because if you don't and you kind of like leave your head loose, like I did that the first time when I did the back bump, my fucking head bounced off the mat, and I was just like, and it was so like, I almost felt like I kind of concussed myself. And when I got up, I was so nauseous. I was remember like trying to like hold my puke. It like sounds so disgusting, but the rule was, if we had the ring, and then we had the bleachers. We had bleachers on the side row, like we left our equipment. And the rule was, if you sat down for like a second on the bleachers, you were done for the day. Like you could not you had to keep going into training. Like you stopped for a second, if you had to stop and go to the bathroom, stop whatever. Like you could stop and do that stuff, but then after that, you can't participate anymore. And then you're gonna sit there for the rest of like, it could happen like within 10 minutes of the training, and then you gotta sit there for the rest of the class period, and you're just like, oh God, like I can't do anything. I gotta watch these guys, and I spent this money. It's and you just can't do anything. And there's nowhere else to do that kind of training except there. So, it was. I remember being on the ring apron, and I had to go to do the next drill. I remember being like, oh God, like I feel so sick, and I just had to suck it up, figuratively and literally, and just go right back into the ring and do the next drill. So, and by the way, for training gear, I wore like a t-shirt. I had elbow pads. I had knee pads. I had like these kind of like gym pants, like track pants kind of things. And I wore Chuck Taylors, because you need like flat sole. You either have to buy like, you can buy like Asics, like the wrestling boots. You could buy like regular wrestling boots, which cost a lot, or you can go with the Chuck Taylors. So I was on like a bit of a budget, and like I was starting out, and I wasn't gonna like invest that much into gear yet. That was sufficient for training gear. But yeah, if you're ever going to training for pro wrestling, make sure you get elbow pads and the knee pads, and because that wrestling mat is canvas, and like you could get like canvas burn, and that shit hurts. Like you can bleed. I remember one of the students, it was in front, a couple students in front of me, like when we were getting in line, like he had he had done one of the moves he did. I guess he scraped his knee. He was just wearing shorts. He didn't have any knee pads, and he had shirt and shorts and shoes or whatever. And whatever move he did, he like scraped his knee, or maybe when he got out of the ring, scraped his knee on the ring mat. And later on, we saw like little like droplets of dry blood, like right on the ring apron. And somebody was like, and one of the trainers asked like, who's what's this from or whatever, and like the dude fessed up. He's like, you gotta tell us, man. It's like, yeah, it's like, trying to keep this ring clean, especially like blood, like just laying there. So it's like one of the dudes someone who works at a dojo, or one of the trainers or whomever, he had like a bottle of bleach and just sprayed it out and wiped it down. So, but yeah, so that make sure you wear those knee pads and elbow pads if you train in a wrestling ring and such. So, but I mean, it was cool to be in a wrestling ring, but man, I was fucking thrashed by the end of a session. Like I said, it was a 2-hour training, and you're going for 2 hours. You might stop a bit because rest a bit before you go on to a next exercise or whatever skill you're going to be learning, what move you're going to be learning for that day. But man, the back bump was like, oh god, that's brutal, because the wrestling ring, there's really no give. I mean, it's wooden boards, and then like maybe like a layer of something in between, like a thin mat maybe or something, and then like the canvas on top. Or some kind or whatever, like a pad, but it's very thin, and then there's no give. Like when you fall, you're doing. That's why you have to learn how to fall properly or roll out of a fall or something. And it's because man, like if you land wrong in that thing, like it's brutal. It's not a trampoline, despite what maybe some people would think. What a wrestling ring is like. It's if it was a trampoline, I think a lot more people would be doing it. So, but yeah, that was that's definitely that's one of the rite of passages of training to be a pro wrestler. But yeah, as I was saying, I would be so fucking thrashed, man, after that class, man. I remember coming home, and I would feel so like sore, and I'd feel sick. This one time, I remember getting off the bus. The bus drops you off in this part of Center City, Philly, where you can like transfer to the subway and then transfer to another one to go to South Philly, which is the route I take. I remember getting off this bus, and I was in this part of Philly, in the old city, very touristy area, and it's like Saturday afternoon already, and I have like my duffel bag, and I have my hoodie, and I remember I was already feeling sick on the bus. I remember getting off the bus, and I remember sitting on this bench, and I remember just like keeling over, just puking, just like dry heaving, just like feeling like total shit. And I thought to myself, man, I must look like a fucking junkie right now in front of all these people. Like, I could imagine like a family walking by being like, the kid's like, Daddy, what's wrong with that guy? Oh, it must be, like, I don't know if you would say it was like, he's not in the best condition or whatever, or he's, don't do drugs like him or whatever. I'm like, it's not drugs. I fucking spent 2 hours training to be a wrestler, and my body is thrashed up. So I remember the recovery process, man, was like fucking long for me, because I wasn't used to this kind of training in this regiment. I remember I'd come home Saturday afternoon, I would just get into bed, just lay down and like watch TV and like not do anything else. And then the Sunday I'd still be like, God, I feel like shit. God, I don't feel like doing anything. And then by Monday I had to go back to work, so I'd have to I'd feel okay by then, and then go to work, and then, your body feels good enough that by, Saturday morning, the following Saturday morning, you're ready to go back and thrash around your body again. I remember thinking like, well, there goes my weekends now because I had to wake up at like, I think I woke up at like 8 or 8:30 or something. So I can make because I remember scheduling it out, and I was like, I have to take the subway and catch this bus and then catch this train, whatever. So, I had to catch this particular bus that was going from Old City up into Northeast to where I had to get off. And then again, like I said, to walk another 12 minutes. So, I remember thinking like, yeah, well, my weekends are kind of shot because, I can't not be, I'm not going to be much social because of my recovery time until I get used to this. But man, like, I've read the stories, heard the stories, and, it's true, man. Like, you have to be 100% devoted to professional wrestling training. You're going to be missing social time. You're going to be missing family gatherings and any kind of thing. You have to devote every single moment. You have to train extra hard during, if it means going to the gym a few times during the week, changing up your diet, just and getting your body just used to it, to the regimen, to the pain, to the strenuous training. As I said, I'd been with practically everybody I trained with in that class. I had previous training. One guy I became friends with, I think he had trained, but he hadn't trained for like a year or two or something, and he was getting back into it. So, but yeah, there were cool moments. I remember there was this one where we were doing this exercise where it's the thing where you get on your back and you have your arms and legs up, and your partner, you have to balance their torso with your legs, and you're holding your hands are up holding their hands, and it's like a move you would see definitely like in lucha or whatever. I don't remember what the move is called, but I remember just being like, oh man, I can't do this. I don't know if I can do this. And it's like, come on, guys. And I think the great thing with that class and the great thing with those with the people I trained with in that CHIKARA class was everybody was so encouraging. We'd all encourage each other. Come on, so come on, yeah, you could do it, and it would really, sincerely be encouraging. They'd really want to see, you do, because you're because it's that thing, I think Mike said it, and it's that thing I've heard before. It's it's like what how do they say it? It was like 10% physical and 90% mental. You could do you're capable of doing it. If you're not thinking about it, if you're not so heady about it, oh, I can't do this. If you're just I'm gonna do it and let's see what and it's you're more capable of doing something than you think, because you may doubt it, oh my god, I can't do this. But I remember doing that move, and it was so cool, and me and my partner shaking hands, yeah, that's great, did it really well, so we work well together, because that's what wrestling is. Wrestling is it's a performance, so you're working with your partner, you both trust each other, and you're working with each other to make the moves look right, and to make the match believable enough, and make the selling look right. You're so it's you're happy when you and your partner yes, we pull that off. So it's a really it was a really encouraging environment. And so as I said, I did it for 3 weeks, and the reason why I only did it for 3 weeks was because the third week that I went to a class, whatchamacall, I injured myself. We were doing some kind of drill, and I'm still trying to remember how it happened, but I remember flipping over or something, and my legs went over my over my head forward, but so far over that I felt this pull in my stomach. I was oh man, and I think that I'm wondering if that might be the hernia that I have today that was caused from that. But I remember feeling this pull in my stomach, and I was like, oh man, I'm like, I think I herniated myself. I don't know. I didn't get it checked out, but I remember just, I could barely like move. I was just like, oh my God. I was like, I can't, do anything. So this was like an exception, like I said, like, when you're out of the ring, you're done for the day. And so I remember, oh God, I remember the other trainers were stretching me out, and because there was like a pile of mats. You could just pull mats out and do stretching before, you get there early enough. You do stretching before class starts. So pulled out a mat, and these guys are like, they're pushing my legs to the left, to the right, back, forward. Like they're really, and it was starting to feel okay. Like I still remember being like, ow, God. I was like, God, I could still feel this pull. But then, they were good. These guys were really helping me like stretch out and showing me stretching exercises. They were really, really great guys at this CHIKARA dojo. And, I was trying to think what else I was doing prior to that, because it was we were doing bridges. I remember we were doing bridges off of we would lay on our backs in the ring and have our like legs like kind of like bent upward, and then you would have to like do this like bridge off your head. And I remember being like, oh my God, like, and some people could like really bridge, like balance off their body really well with it. And I was just remember being like, man, I was like, this is kind of crazy. Like I'm like, and then you're pushing your head against this hard mat again. It was, it was really intense. And then we did whatever the exercise was, where my legs like flipped like way over my fucking head, and I got the hernia and shit, the bad pull in my stomach. So these guys are helping me stretch out, and they're doing moves, they're doing like drills, moves in the ring and stuff. And I'm just like, damn, man, I wish I was in there doing that shit. And so finally, like I think I was starting to feel okay enough. I remember standing up, I guess, and I was like, okay, like I feel good. And Mike was like, so Mike Quackenbush looks over to me. He's like, all right. He's like, hey, Art, come here. He's like, this is training that you could do, because it's all upper body. You're not going to be using your legs or anything, whatever. I was like, all right, cool. And basically what we learned, then we started learning the really cool stuff, was the collar elbow tie, wrist lock, headlock. We learned a sequence of like basic, the basic moves that you would do to start off a wrestling match. And again, I'm trying to remember the moves, but I remember it was it was start off with a collar elbow tie up, the traditional lock up in the beginning of a match. And then it went to like a headlock, and then a wrist lock. And then I can't remember what other move it went into, but we had to do that with, we had to do it with we had to switch partners. So it was, it ended up like you ended up doing that with every, with every student in the class. So I remember I had partnered up with this one dude, big fucking guy, and I think his name was Chris or something, and we go to collar elbow tie up, and like it's like boom, like you hear that, like just like grab each other, and he's like, "Come on, brother, just grab you harder," and I'm like try and do it again. I was like, he's like, just grab again. He's like, "Come on, brother, grab me harder, man. You just gotta, like just really grab me." And he's like, "You're not gonna hurt me," and I remember thinking like, I think I had said it to him. I says, I'm like, man, I don't want to hurt you. I don't want to like, I might grab you hard, slap you hard. He's like, I don't care, man. Just do it. Just grab hard. And like after like maybe a couple, like one more time, I think I finally was like, oh, I was like, like really grabbed him hard. And he was like, yeah, that's it. That's what I mean. That's what I'm talking about. It was fucking great. It's like such a crazy world, man. It's such a crazy, thing to hear that where the guy's like, come on, grab me as hard as you can. It was like, I thought it was too funny. And I was like, bro, we were rotating out with some other, classmates and such. And, some people was doing like really good with, like it was, everybody, it was great working with everybody. And then I remember I had this one partner, and I think he was like, it's collar and elbow. You grab one of the collarbone, and then you grab the elbow, with your other hand. And I was like grabbing like the forearm or above the elbow. Like for some reason, like I was sloppy with like with how I was doing the hold, and like I would be told like, hey man, like it's grab the elbow. You're grabbing the arm. You're not grabbing the elbow. You're grabbing the wrong part. And I was like, okay, yeah, I gotta pay attention. Well, I partner up with this with one of my classmates, this girl Savannah, and go for the collar elbow tie up. I think I grabbed her wrist or something, and she fucking slapped me across the face. And Mike Quackenbush is standing right there, like with this look, like with this like oh shit look, like whoa, and I was just like feeling just like had my hand on my face, like dude, and she was just like she just had this innocent look on her face. She was like, I'm sorry. She's like, instinct, I guess. And I thought, yeah, well, I grabbed her wrist. So like, what's like her first instinct when a guy grabs her wrist? Smack across the face. So that right there was a lesson to grab the elbow in a collar and elbow tie up. So, so I really had like learned it by then. And it was funny after we'd all completed doing the exercise with the collar elbow tie up into the headlock, into the wrist lock, into some other move I can't remember and such. Mike's like, he was like, who worked the lightest? And people would like point, and I was pointing at him. I was like, who worked the hardest or the stiffest or whatever? And like everybody pointed at this guy. The guy that I was working with, it was like, come on, grab me hard. That's what I'm talking about. So, but I liked it, like when he grabbed me hard, it was like, you're getting a real feel. And like with other people too, like you're getting that like real feel of like in the match, like, okay, like this is the start of it now. Like you're really getting into it. So basically, after that, Mike's like, okay, you learn, you all know the sequences now. Like everybody, get up on the ring apron, sit, 3 on each side. Whomever you're facing, you're gonna partner up with that person, and you're gonna each do the, you're each gonna do the sequence, and then someone's gonna take a back bump, and for whatever reason, the guy I partnered up with, I don't know if I was like, yeah, I'll do the back bump. I just been injured, in this exercise much earlier in the class, and I'm like, so like confident after doing all these other moves that I'm like, I'll take the back bump. So it gets to our turn. Me and my partner, we get in the ring, do the lockup, the headlock, the collar elbow tie up, get out of, I put him into the collar, put him into the wrist lock. He breaks out of it. He does does like a clothesline or something, and I take the back bump. And when I land, I remember being like, ah! Like I just remember grabbing my stomach, and Mike's like, go sit down, Art. And I just remember like rolling out of the ring and just being like, oh man. And I just sat on the bench, and I was like done for the rest of the day. I don't remember how much longer that was left, but I was already like just putting my, shoes on and stuff probably, and just like, Mike comes up to me afterward. I don't know if it was afterward or if it was maybe after I had the injury. And he goes, well, and he knew how old I was. So he's like, if it's the injury that I think you have, he's like, I had the same one. He's like, and that hurt. He's like, and I was 34 when I had that injury. He goes, and it hurt. And I remember being like, yeah. so you could sympathize. But man, it was, I was just like, oh God, I'm like, I wonder if I'm going to recover from this. So along the way, so after that third week of the class, my father passed away. I think he had a second stroke. He had a stroke the previous October before I had decided to go into this wrestling training. And that happened, and I was like, boy, it was like, it may have happened probably before the class, so it may have happened, and I still went to class, because it happened like it was like the 19th of February, I think, when he died, like the morning of. So I think I went to class the next day, and that's probably I think that's when I got injured. I think I was just trying to just kind of like not, just kind of distract myself for a bit and be like, okay, I gotta go train and whatever. And it wasn't in my mind, and so like the injury wasn't like because I was distracted. It just, I just did something stupid or whatever. So that happened, and then so the funeral was the following Saturday, which would have been week 4 of my training. So I went to I think I went to Mike, and I said, "There's no makeup classes, are there?" And he said, "No, there isn't." He's like, it's a 7-week course, and I can't remember if I told him then and there about my father. I feel like I did. I can't remember. It might have been after class though, because I don't know if I say anything before class, or to say something afterward, I guess. And I was like, well, I have to go to the funeral. I mean, I have to go to my father's funeral. I cannot. You've heard wrestling stories where like, people wrestlers miss funerals to go to do a show or to do a commitment, whatever, or that's their devotion, that's their commitment to their training and to their sport and all that kind of thing. And I was just like, well, I have to go to the funeral. So, I mean, I was like, well, so like I'm going to miss a week. Then I'm going to be a week behind. These guys are going to learn 2 hours of stuff. I mean, I went email Mike and be like, what I miss? So I'd made this decision, it took me it was like during the week I was like, I was just like in the dumps about, a bunch of shit. So I sent in, so I wrote Mike an email, and I basically said, I hate to make this decision. I know that the money's not refundable, and there's 4 more weeks. I was like, but, I still don't feel physically, good, from last class to do, another training. And, my father's funeral, and, I have to go to that, and his death, like, it's like, that's fucking me up. So it's like, I was like, I don't think I can continue training. And I'm like, and I hate to be like this, and I hate to, end it like this, and then whatever. I'm like, but I'm just like in this mindset of not, I just felt so defeated. I just like, I felt after three weeks, I was like, I don't know if I can go on training like this, like feeling like shit. And, my body's not getting used to this regimen. It's like, feels like it's getting destroyed even more. Am I just like living some kind of like goofy pipe dream, and like my body's just not, and I'm just not pushing myself enough, or like my body is just definitely not prepared for this kind of training and such. And, I just wasn't into pushing myself. I just felt it was just like a really low point in my life. So, I told him I was done with it, and he wrote back, really heartfelt response, and he was really sad for me and sad, for me going through my father's death, and and I know he would have wanted me to continue it and such, and so sometimes I regret ending it like that, but at the time I really felt no way of going further with it physically and mentally, but I'm glad I experienced it for those 3 weeks, and I'm glad I got to train the way I did, and I learned what I did, and I'd watched car shows for many years. I'd seen Mike Quackenbush in many matches, and Ophidian and a lot of matches as well. It was so cool to train under those guys. They're really, really wonderful dudes and really great trainers. And it sounds like an endorsement, but it is. I mean, I highly recommend training at that school if you want to learn, if you want to learn to be a pro wrestler in general, or especially want to learn that particular style. But those dudes are really great to train under. And as I said, I wish I could have completed the remaining 4 weeks. I'm not sure if I would have went on to the advanced class. I mean, it depends on how I would have felt, of course, at the end of the beginner course. But again, I'm saying I'm glad I went through it, and it was an interesting time. It was an interesting thought process, and some people I know, a few people I know from that class, like I think one of the dudes, he wrestled for a while, but then he got injured, but then I think he got back into it, and I'm not sure what his current status is. This woman I know, she'd been training there for years, and I think she's been refereeing some matches. I don't know if she's wrestled yet, but I remember when I was I think she was in the advanced class, which was like the afternoon class, which was like right after our class. So like I'd see her coming in, and I'd talk to her for a bit. She was she was in a friend circle, mutual friend circle in South Philly. So I'd already known her at that point, and I talked to her about how training was there before I signed up and stuff for it, and but I already respected pro wrestlers, but I respected them a lot more after I took those classes. I mean the training and the physical and mental pushing and anguish that you deal with to make your goal to be a whatever level star you want to be in professional wrestling. It's that's why people hate the word fake in that industry, because fake, it sounds like, there's no repercussions for what you do. I mean, the physicality is it's grueling to the body. The moves they do and the bumps they take, and the mental anguish with the constant travel on the road, and it's all the backstage stuff that you deal with, and keeping up with being a star and such, and but definitely as far as the training, I mean, I it was cool to watch matches, and then to really understand more the mechanics of moves after training and learning a few of them in the ring, but I never saw a show at that dojo. I mean, they do shows there too. I saw shows I saw CHIKARA shows when they were running at Viking Hall, the old ECW arena where CZW and other companies were running in the early mid 2000s. So, but it was cool to go in there and train, and it's the same place where they run their shows, and to be in that ring was really awesome. It was a real honor, and to be trained under Mike Quackenbush and Ophidian, that was really awesome too. So when I moved down here to Austin, I told some people that I trained in wrestling for a bit, and they were like, "Oh, you should continue it here." But I was like, "Well, that idea is rode into the sunset a long time ago." Find other ways to be involved in wrestling if I wanted to be, but being a wrestler itself is just that's a whole other feat, and whomever does it, best of luck. It's a hell of a training regimen, but if you're ready for it, if you're ready to take a good a good positive punishment, then I think you'll definitely be into it. But it's like I said, it's a great school to learn at, and I definitely recommend the CHIKARA Dojo. And check out their information when they offer training classes and such, and their prices on their website. I think that's where it's all there. It's where I saw it. So it's a good deal over there and stuff. So well, I'm gonna end this show, this episode 6 of the ArtCast. Thanks again, and remember, you can listen to this show on Podbean, TuneIn Radio, iTunes, Podcast, Stitcher, and iPodder. Videos are on Facebook and YouTube. The links will be in the show descriptions and such. But thanks again, and I appreciate you listening, and we will see you soon. Have a nice day, y'all.